compris the Hamel. Jouer que dans le corps, seulement dans le corps.
Hamel, where you been? Round the world and back again. Hamel, never have you heard? That's the mockingbird. If that mockingbird don't sing, that's gonna buy you a diamond ring. If that diamond ring don't shine, take you back to the five and dime. If that five and dime don't grow, that's gonna buy you Billy Gold. Hamel, 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 Hamel. Yes.
Cheers, my brother.
All right, yeah. So let's talk about ham, Mr. Hamish. Do hamish. Do hush, mish. All right, Mark Hamill. Let me get my. Completion. People are disgusting. Whoo, man. Let me find out. Okay. So, Aryan mythology. In Greek mythology, Arion or Orion is a divinely bred, fabulously fast, black maned horse. He saved the life of Adastrus, king of Argos, during the War of the Seven against Thebes. Orion was, by most accounts, the offspring of Poseidon and Demeter. When the goddess Demeter was searching for her daughter Persephone, she was pursued by Poseidon. To escape Poseidon, Demeter turned herself into a mare and hid among the mares of Onesius, king of Elpusa in Arcadia. But Poseidon turned himself into a stallion and mated with Demeter, producing Arion. Other accounts had Arion as the offspring of Gaia or of Zephyrus and a harpy. Arion was given to the hero Hercules, who rode Orion into battle during his expedition to Eleusis, and also during his combat with Ares' son Sickness. Later, Hercules gave Arion to Adrastus, the king of Argos. Adustus took Arion with him on the disastrous expedition of the Seven against Thebes. On the way to Thebes, Arion competed and finished first in the first Nemean Games at Thebes. Love you too. When the battle was lost, Arion quickly spirited his master Adustus away from the battlefield, saving his life when all the other leaders of the expedition were killed. Arion is mentioned as early as in the Iliad of Homer, where he is described as the swift horse of Adustus that was of heavenly stock. A scholiast on this line of the Iliad explains that Arion was the offspring of Poseidon, who in the form of a horse mated with Fury by the fountain Tilphalsa in Boeotia. The scholiast goes on to say that Poseidon gave Arion to Copreus, king of Haliartus in Cycnus, at the shrine of Pegasian Apollo near Trojan. Hercules then gave Arion to Adrastus, and the horse saved Adrastus's life during the War of the Seven against Thebes. According to the scholiast, the story is in the cyclic poets, a reference perhaps to the cyclic Thebaid. The Hesiodic shield of Hercules also has the great horse black maned Arion as Hercules' horse during the hero's fight with sickness. A poetic fragment of Callimachus says, Arion the Arcadian horse did not rage thus at the shrine of Epesician Zeus. Apesis is a Aiden, check the door for the groceries. Apesis is a hill near Nemea. Okay. Time to put all the little goonies to sleep. Gotta read them some bedtime stories and put them to sleep. Sorry if y'all hear me smacking, but I'm hungry. So, a poetic fragment of Callimachus says, Arion the Arcadian horse did not rage thus at the shrine of Ape Santian Zeus. Apsis is a hill near Nemea, and the line perhaps refers to Arion being raced during the first Nemean games. Strabo, Apollodorus, and Paulus and Ennius. The late 1st century BC to early 1st century AD geographer Strabo says that when Adrastus' chariot was wrecked at Thebes, he escaped on Arion. The mythographer Apollodorus, 1st or 2nd century, says that Poseidon sired Arion on the goddess Demeter, when in the likeness of a fury she consorted with him. Apollodorus also says that in the War of the Seven against Thebes, while all the other leaders of the Argive army were killed, only Adrastus survived, saved by his horse Arion. The 2nd century geographer Pausanias, by way of explaining why at Thelpuza in Arcadia they called Demeter Fury, gives a more complete account of the birth of Arion. According to this account, when Demeter was wandering in search of her daughter Persephone, who had been abducted by Hades, Demeter was pursued by Poseidon, who lusted after her. To escape Poseidon, Demeter turned herself into a mare and mingled with the mares of Onesius, the son of Apollo. But Poseidon, realizing that he was outwitted, turned himself into a stallion and mated with Demeter. It was because of her avenging anger at Poseidon that Demeter acquired the surname Fury. Pausanias says that according to the Thelpusians, Demeter had by Poseidon the horse Arion and a sister whose name they do not divulge to the uninitiated. Pausanias goes on to say, however, that according to Antimachus, Arion of Thelpusa was the offspring of Gaia. Pausanias also says that according to legend, during Hercules' expedition against Elise, he asked Ancus for Arion, and that Hercules rode Arion into battle when he took Elise, after which Hercules gave Arion to Adrastus. Pausanias says that explains why Antimachus said Adrastus was the third lord who tamed him. Statius. Orion figures prominently in the Roman poet Statius's 1st century Latin epic, The Bade. That was that boy name. Okay. So before them, all Orion is led, conspicuous by the fire of his ruddy name. Neptune was the horse's father, if our elders' tale be true. He is said to have been the first to bruise the youngling's mouth with the bit and break him in on the sand of the shore, sparing the lash. For indeed there was no satisfying the horse's passion to be moving, and he was as changeful as a winter sea. Often he was wont to go in harness with the swimming steeds through Ionian or Libyan deep, carrying his Carulian father to every coast. Outstripped, the clouds were amazed, east and south winds emulously followed, nor less was he on land, bringing Amphitrion's son Hercules through deep furrowed meadows as he fought Eurystheus' battles. Even for him he was wild and unmanageable. Later, by gift of the gods, he deigned to obey King Adrastus, and in the years between he had grown much tamer. In Stias's account, Adrastus has let his son-in-law Polynices drive Arion in the race. Prescient Arion had sensed that another driver stood pulling the reins, and in his innocence had dreaded the fell son of Oedipus, Polynices. Right from the starting line he was at odds with his burden and angry, more truculent in his ardor than of wont. The children of Inachus think him fired by desire for glory, but it is the driver he flees. The driver he threatens in his wild fury as he looks around for his master, a justice all over the field, yet he is ahead of them all. But Apollo, having promised victory to the seer Amphiaraus, raised up a snaky monster from the underworld in Orion's path, and when Orion saw the monster, he reared, sending Polynices sprawling, and the driverless Arion finished first. But the victory went to Amphiaraus. So in fair division, the horse kept his glory. Victory went to the seer. According to the 1st century BC Latin poet Sextus Propertius, Orion spoke. And according to the 4th century poet Quintus Smyrnius, Orion was begotten by Cyprus on a harpy. Sextus Propertius was a Latin elegiac poet of the Augustan age. He was born around 50 to 45 BC in Assisium and died shortly after 15 BC. Propertius' surviving work comprises 4 books of elegies or elegy. He was a friend of the poets Gallus and Virgil, and with them had as his patron Maecenas, and through Maecenas the Emperor Augustus. Although Propertius was not as renowned in his own time as other Latin elegists, he is today regarded by scholars as a major poet. Very little information is known about Propertius outside of his own writing. His praedomen Sextus is mentioned in Aelius Donatus. A few manuscripts list him as Sextus Propertius, but the rest of he was born and raised in Umbria. His birthplace is generally regarded as modern Assisi. Assisi, where tourists can view the Escali, if not the poet himself. During Propertius's childhood, his father died and the family lost land as part of a confiscation, probably the same one which reduced Virgil's estate with Octavian, allotted lands to his veterans in 41 BC, along with cryptic references in Ovid that imply that he was younger than his contemporary Tibullus. This suggests a birth date after 55 BC. After his father's death, Propertius's mother set him on a course for a public career, indicating his family still had some wealth, while the abundance of obscure mythology present in his poetry indicates he received a good education. Frequent mention of friends like Tullus, the nephew of Lucius Vulcatius Tullus, consul in 33 BC, plus the fact that he lived on Rome's Esquiline Hill, indicate he moved among the children of the rich and politically connected during the early part of the 20s BC. It was during this time that he met Cynthia, the older woman, who would inspire him to express his poetic genius. Propertius published the first book of love elegies in 25 BC, with Cynthia herself as the main theme. The book's complete devotion gave it the natural title Cynthia Monobiblos. The Monobiblos must have attracted the attention of Maecenas, a patron of the arts who took Propertius into his circle of court poets. A second larger book of elegies who was published perhaps a year later, on one that includes poems addressed directly to his patron and, as expected, praises for Augustus. The 19th century classic scholar Karl Lachmann argued, based on the unusually large number of poems in this book and Propertius's mention of Tres Libelli, that the single book 2 actually comprises two separate books of poetry conflated in the manuscript tradition, an idea supported by the state of the manuscript tradition of Book 2. An editor of Propertius, Paul Fedeli, accepts this hypothesis, as does G.P. Gould, editor of the Loeb edition. The publication of a third book came sometime after 23 BC. Its content shows the poet beginning to move beyond simple love themes, as some poems use armor. So, as some poems are merely as a starting for other topics, the book also shows the poet growing tired of the demanding yet fickle Cynthia, and implies a bitter end to their torrid affair. Uh, Another book published sometime after 16 BC displays more of the poet's ambitious agenda and includes several aetiological poems explaining the origin of various Roman rites and landmarks.